Our next speaker is the Honorable Mr. بیژن Kyan, twice Senate-confirmed former member of the Board of Directors of U.S. Export-Import Bank, a former member of the White House Business Council, reporting directly to two U.S. presidents from both major political parties.
Good morning, Sarah, and distinguished members on this panel. Happy to be here, and I want to thank you for inviting me. Today, I'd like to start by remembering the names and memory of the innocent souls who were murdered by the world's strongest state sponsor of terrorism, the Islamic Republic in Iran. You remember Nedara Sultan, we just heard about Pejman Ghalipur from a grieving mother, others, Sattar Beheshti, Navid Afkari, and many more. Thousands of innocent lives were taken by the Islamic Republic. So we start our talk with them in mind. And then today, what I'd like to talk about is what is the Islamic Republic? The Islamic Republic is an octopus with many tentacles, a very, very formidable enemy of freedom and liberty. Why is it that over the past 42 years, a regime that oppresses its own people, harasses its neighbors, and poses a threat to international security has survived? What factors have helped the survival of this brutal kleptocracy, inept, corrupt regime? Well, the warriors, let's start with them. The quality of the warriors. Warriors have been fighting this monster with minimum resources. It's very difficult. These fighters are inside Iran. They're fighting courageously every day. They're willing to die to get their freedom. And then the head of the diplomacy in the Islamic Republic shamelessly stares at the camera and says, this is the life they have chosen. Really, they've chosen to die for freedom. That's what they voted for. This is what your independence and freedom slogan meant in the beginning of the Islamic Republic. No, they're determined. They're courageous. They're fighting. But who are they fighting? Are they fighting just the Islamic Republic? No, they're fighting the Islamic Republic plus a group of money grabbers who care about nothing but the money they can make. They play both sides. On the one side, they're advising the leaders of the Islamic Republic. On the other side, they're drafting the JCPOA for the United States consideration. It's really amazing how this happens. They get paid by the enemy of the United States to aid the United States in fighting the enemy. This would have been funny if it wasn't so sad. So I just could go through a list of the money grabbers, but those who are observing closely know exactly who I'm talking about. They're both in Tehran and capitals in Europe and actively speaking on behalf of the Islamic Republic rulers. So they play a role in this survival for the Islamic Republic in Iran. And now let's go to the other group, the intellectuals. Same intellectuals who thought back in 1979 that the most important issue was to write a dissertation about lifting the water pick or the old afghabeh with the right hand and using the left hand in doing what one has to do in the laboratory. They're learned men. They had gone to school and learned many things, but their minds were mired with this kind of thinking. And of course, it matched the ruler, the leader of the Islamic Republic, Ayatollah Khomeini. I said at one point that the only technology, he had no idea what was going on in the real world. The only technology he was very familiar with was the technology of a water pick, the afghabeh. And of course, when we put all of this together, we see in the battlefield, on the one side, the world's strongest state sponsor of terrorism with money, oil, and other resources. are the resources that come not from legitimate sources, but from drug trafficking, from human trafficking, and that's the way the Islamic Republic pays their proxy fighters wherever they are to create havoc in Lebanon, in Yemen, in Syria, harassing the Middle East neighbors, and of course call for America's strongest ally in the Middle East, Israel, the state of Israel. So all of this is happening, and the warriors have to fight all of these sources, a network of university professors, nonprofit organizations who hang around with the international conferences with the Islamic Republic delegates. It's just so mind-boggling when we observe this. So maybe we should pay attention to who else is helping the Islamic Republic to stay in power for so long. So on the other side of the field, confronting the Islamic Republic are the warriors, the real people, the brave people of Iran with very little resources. We could see the workers, we could see women at the forefront of the fight against the tyranny of Islamic Republic. And it's hard. It's hard when you have just a few arrows in your quiver and you have to really face the Goliath. So what do? Well, you have to look at the weaknesses. We talked about the Eye of Isfandiar, which is the equivalent of Homer's Achilles' heel. Ferdowsi, the great Persian poet, in his epic masterpiece Shahnameh, describes the effects of the Eye of Isfandiar. Very similar to the Achilles' heel. So what will bring down the Islamic Republic? I'd like to mention a number of possible factors that would be the weakest points of the Islamic Republic. Let's start with the instrument that the Islamic Republic has been relying on. It throws this document in the face of whoever questions their behavior by saying, this is my constitution. This is what the Iranian people selected to live under. And that constitution is the greatest barrier to freedom. This is a wall that is between the freedom-seeking people of Iran and their enemy, their own government, the Islamic Republic in Iran. Now, when we talk about the battlefield and the number of limited arrows, and we take a look at the Constitution as the greatest weakness. This is a Constitution that treats Iranian people as subjects, as invalids who need a guardian. The Constitution says you, as Iranians, are not competent enough to be able to make decisions for yourself. You need a guardian. The Constitution that looks at the natural resources of Iran as war booty belonging to the 12th Imam. And until his appearance, whatever that is, the power of holding the control over these assets, the natural resources, is with the unelected, self-appointed supreme leader who calls himself the ruler of Iran today from the Islamic Republic. People of Iran must make a decision to write their own constitution. Start with this line. All people in Iran, men and women, have equal rights, absolute equal rights, with no conditions, with no need to align or correspond to any customs, religion, or any other provision of Sharia law. People of Iran have rejected wholesale this institution, its constitution, its related entities, and all there is attached to it. It's time that this is looked at as a point of weakness for the Islamic Republic. People of Iran should be writing their own constitution. The Free Iran Constitution would set the rules that they like to live under, and then they can show the world, this is how we want to live. So saying no to Islamic Republic was essential. Now the world needs to know what the Iranian people really want. And there's no other way than for them, not somebody in Pentagon, not somebody in the United States or Europe or anywhere else, to write their own constitution. They wanted to have a safe platform to do this. That safe platform has been offered by the Institute for Voices of Liberty. Now, Institute for Voices of Liberty exists not to tell the Iranian people, not to tell those warriors what to do or how to fight. They know much better than anybody can ever tell them. We exist to ask them, tell us, how can we help you? And we listen carefully. Whatever the Institute does is following exactly the voices of the Iranian people. You could say the boss of the Institute is the Iranian people and the freedom-seeking Iranian people. Who are the freedom-seeking Iranian people? Those are the individuals who have rejected and denounced the entirety of the Islamic Republic without any doubt or hesitation. Those are the voices that the Institute reflects. So we move on to the second possible Achilles heel of the Islamic Republic, women of Iran. The day that the veiled woman decides to protect the rights of the woman who chooses not to wear the veil, that's a bad day for Islamic Republic. That is the biggest weakness because of the first line of that free Iran constitution that I just recited for you. And by the way, that line didn't come from me. It came from the people of Iran. They're courageous. They know what they want. They just want the freedom to be able to define their destiny and their future. We move on to the third weakness, to the third Achilles heel, if you would. And that is the day that the armed forces of the Islamic Republic decide that the future is bleak if they continue to attach themselves to the tyrant. They have safety waiting for them if they return to the arms of the people of Iran, those who they need to protect, the country, the land, the integrity of the country is what they're charged to do. They wore those uniforms to protect the country, not a brutal regime that kills its own people and threatens its neighbors. That is also a weakness, and we should all be thinking about what would it take to encourage them to return to the arms of the people. When we move on to the other possibilities to find Achilles heel of the Islamic Republic, we must remember the atrocities of the regime. We must help bring to the attention of world leaders. You're doing business with a brutal regime that kills its own people. If you choose freedom, you stay with the people of Iran. If you choose to do business with the tyrant, murderers, you will not be forgiven by the people of Iran. And remember, this clerical regime is under no obligation to stand with its commitments. The commitments they generate are not worth the paper they're written on. And yet, as we know, JCPOA offers no commitment. So we also reach out. The last, perhaps, on the list of Achilles heel of Islamic Republic is to remind countries like Germany, yes, you have a 15% year-over-year dual trade with the Islamic Republic. Yes, in the short run, if you stop this trade, you will lose. But in the long run, you will win. Because the people of Iran are a much more reliable partner for you than possibly the Islamic Republic. A shaken, failing government is not a good business partner for you. That is our message. This is a message that the people of Iran wish for us, all of us, to be able to convey to world leaders. Don't do business with this regime. It's not going to be a sustainable partnership. Choose your partners wisely. That is the message. Now, I'd like to finish by sharing a little story that was shared with me by my colleague, Dr. Jalali, at the Institute. She said, look, we face a tall wall, and this wall is the wall of the power and the might and the money of the Islamic Republic. We have a small hammer. The small hammer is no match for the tall wall. I also have a sledgehammer, but I can't lift a sledgehammer. So what do? I will look for cracks in the wall that my small hammer can actually deal with and bring this wall down. And I found that to be the wise advice, to be able to look for the cracks. There are many. We should look for the cracks in the structure of Islamic Republic because it's corrupt. Institutionalized corruption, ineptitude, kleptocracy, and almost at the end of the rope. The cracks are there. Let's find them. And let's use the small hammer to bring this wall down. Thank you, and I look forward to some questions.